What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Chris Aiken from the Classic Metal Show, connected me with this gentleman right here, Mr. Military Mike Madsen. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, good. You were educating me a little bit before we went on the air and all the stuff I need to get hip to and caught up on in this world. Usually when I have a vet on for the first time, I like to ask them a series of questions about their time in, and, go back to their childhood and stuff a little bit.
All right.
But, originally, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Man, I wanted to be an astronaut.
Nice.
Everybody in my family knows it. Everybody I can tell. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Now they come out with Space Force, right?
Yeah, I even tried out. I was even interviewed by NASA when I was a helicopter pilot in the Army, and they had a chief warrant officer program. It was basically like a mission load specialist program, but unfortunately, my graduate level education wouldn't have carried me far enough. By the time, you have to be got to like have your PhD at a certain age so that NASA feels like they can get enough years out of you. So, I wasn't going to meet that. So I was crushed. I just had to be exceptionally good looking and instinctively smart instead, I guess.
Yeah. Well, good on you. And what age was it when you knew that you wanted to serve your country?
Wow, this is kind of a bad part of my story, I guess. My father, my stepfather, who actually raised me, he died in 1976 from complications with artificial kidneys. And my poor mother, God rest her soul, she had to raise three hellions that I call my two brothers. She was a U.S. Marshal, and she became a criminal litigator. She went to law school. She completed her education, went to John Marshall Law School in Atlanta, passed the bar, became a criminal litigator, and on an offshoot case, she was representing a guy who was going through an extremely difficult custody battle, and they had, I guess she crossed the line there, I guess, and they started dating, and she was still representing him. They went to pick up his children for the weekend, and they were ambushed, and she was shot and killed in Gwinnett County in 1980. So I had just turned 15. So I guess December 13th, I figured out I was probably going to end up joining the military instead of becoming an attorney or becoming an astronaut. So signed up at 17 and went in immediately after graduating high school.
Okay, great. And then what branch did you end up going into?
I went in the Army. I spent 28 years in the Army, but I was Army active duty, Army Reserve, and Army National Guard at one time. So I jumped around quite a bit. Got a whole bunch of MOSs. Did some really crazy stuff. Really enjoyed it. I was the guy who never said no. There wasn't any school or every time they asked for a volunteer, I was the first guy to raise my hand.
Wow. Yeah. No wonder Chris wanted to get us connected. And then although 28 years, it's got to be quite a few. I don't know if you'll be able to narrow it down, but what's some of the oddest things that you witnessed? I guess they wouldn't be with all that time. They would be like every day, but some of the oddest things that you witnessed or experienced in the military compared to what you wouldn't see in the civilian world.
Well, I was after I graduated JFK Special Warfare, I was awaiting assignment, and I got picked to be a bodyguard for a 2-star general, Major General Albert Akers, and he was an old man. He was in his mid to late 60s at the time. He wrote training manuals, but ironically enough, he was getting death threats. So back then they didn't have any specific PSDs or anything like that. They just assigned a high-speed, low-drag kid to protect him. And then we had a Spec 5 driver named Ed Sherman. And it was the most incredible assignment out of all my years. I spent 2.5 years every day of my life waking them up and putting them to bed. And it's a true meaning of the word service. It really is, because he didn't have any kids that he would like to talk about. So he always called me son, and I took that to heart. So not only was I doing my job, I felt like I was protecting my father. Absolutely crazy stuff, man. Just, you know, the guy disappears on you, because we used to love to go to air shows, and you're sitting there protecting him, and you turn around and he's gone because he wanted to go see the FB-111 or something like that at Shaw Air Force Base.
Or so, a snow cone or something.
Yeah, man, it was really crazy. When he retired, he called his primary and secondary staff in, and he said, if you want my name on any type of recommendation for assignments or schools or anything, you got to tell me right now, because I'm retiring. Me and a lieutenant friend of mine, Bob Chip, he looked at me and goes, hey, man, let's go fly helicopters. So I went, okay. So I didn't know that they split pilots up, you know. So when I got there, I had to go the warrant officer route, and Bob went the real live officer route. And so I spent a year down at Fort Rucker, and I came out with 5 aircraft transitions, with a primary aircraft transition and AH-1s. I flew Cobras. So really cool, man. Got to travel around the world. Got to go I lived in Germany for 3 years. Shoot, you know, after flying for a living, you know, of course the Army has a way of ruining it, but after flying AH-1 for a living, it's really, really hard to, you know, and unless they're going to let me fly the space shuttle, I don't know what's going to be able to top that.
Yeah, exactly. And during your entire time, what would you say, where was the worst place, without breaking OPSEC? Like, where was the worst place?
Oh, yeah. Kabul, Afghanistan. Beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't know how your viewers or what your standards are, but there's
very low.
Yeah, good for them. I like them already. No, there's a saying in Derry, or Pashto. Really, they didn't really speak much Pashto where I was. It was mainly Derry, but there was a saying that said Kabul was the place that God put all the rocks he didn't want. Place was horrible, man. It was terrible. Yeah. And I've been to some shitholes of the world, and let me tell you something. Afghan people were beautiful. They're great. They're the friendliest people. They took care of us. I helped my interpreter come through the U.S. Embassy in 2012, and his family has gotten citizenship. He lives here in the United States now, and they're all growing up safe. But man, I tell you what, that is the most corrupt, disgusting, nasty place that you could ever possibly want to be. It took being there for a year. It probably took 5 years to get the smell out of my nose hairs. Place was ridiculous, man.
I bet. And then what was where would you say was one of the best places?
Oh, buddy, I was on a NATO air base in Giebelstadt, Germany. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I was fluent in German before I went, and at the time, she was my girlfriend. She was living with me. Ended up, we got married and we had 3 kids and 2 grandkids. We've been divorced now for a couple of years, but yeah, Germany was magnificent, man. I loved it. If I could literally, it's very difficult when you're my age. I'm 57. So if I want to live somewhere abroad and I don't work, I don't create any taxation, they won't give you the citizenship. So, but if I could live in Germany or Sicily, Italy, that's where I'd retire for good.
Gotcha. And what would you say is one of your like pet peeves that you have with civilians since transitioning out of the military?
Well, my biggest pet peeve, and this, believe it or not, this one's pretty simple, is I absolutely despise when they refer to anything other than combat as being like being in war or being in combat. Or if they tell me, and I realize that post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a medical term, and it doesn't just isolate to veterans. But I've got a real distaste for when somebody says, oh, this job was so bad, it was like being in combat. And it's like, buddy, you just don't know. You just don't know. I was lucky enough to do a nationally syndicated documentary called Charlie Foxtrot on the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder and the VA's inability to handle the overwhelming situation. And one of my lines from the documentary was, have you ever been scared? Have you ever been so scared that you can feel your heartbeat in your throat? Imagine that for about 2 years, every second. And that's what it was really like, you know? And so when civilians kind of compare their situations to being in combat, yeah, gets the hair on the back of my neck to stand up.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I'm going to have to hit you up for a link or whatever to that documentary. I'd like to definitely check that out. Because, yeah, yeah, we definitely are tracking on that for sure. And then what is something that you will always carry with you from your time of service?
Beyond a reasonable doubt, the camaraderie, especially now, I pretty much have dedicated my life to working for veterans. I'm a veteran service officer at my American Legion post. I run a veteran-based company called the Foxhole Internet Radio Network. I work with homeless veterans at night and obviously during the week. I'm a vice president for a nonprofit out of Birmingham, Alabama called the Velcro Initiative that does free medical alternative therapies for veterans and first responders. So I think the thing that I hold near and dear to my heart is the camaraderie. And we don't look at each other for the color of our skin. We don't look at each other as, not that I know any real rich veterans, but we don't look at each other as, you know, you're successful because you're financially well-to-do. I think that if we could replace that in our communities throughout the country, we would be such a better place, because I think veterans, we look at each other for one, there's an immediate acceptance because we all raised our hand and we have that DNA, that warrior DNA, because none of us had any interpretation of being rich or popular or, you know, having any notoriety. Mm-hmm. So that selfless act is the initial portion of our camaraderie. It's something that gives us acceptance. The next thing is that regardless of who we are, I don't think that we would ever leave a comrade fallen on the battlefield. So in my case, they're injured or they're homeless. So they haven't necessarily fallen. They've just, you know, they've missed a step or lost some traction. So I think there's a responsibility there. And that goes along with the camaraderie. And it's immediate. There's no qualification for it. We've already done it by obtaining the status veteran.
Yeah. Wow. It's good stuff to know. I'm going to definitely want to track back to that Valkyrie alternative medicine program you mentioned.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
But you know, what's one of the funniest stories that you feel you can share from your time in service?
Let's see. Funny stories. Gosh, let's see. One of the ones that I probably was the most nervous about was as a young soldier. You know, we all carried the little brick radios, the Motorola's and whatnot. And while I was on duty as a bodyguard, I got a call, and we used to ironically call him Eagle One, the general. And we got a call that Eagle One was in distress. Eagle One was in distress. And I got back on the radio and I said, negative. Eagle One is in the nest. I got him here with me. And they're like, no, Mrs. Eagle One. And I went, oh no. So this is so long ago that we used to drive the lime green Reliant K's. Okay. That's how long ago this was. So I go in and make sure he's safe and explain to him, I've got to leave the perimeter for a moment. Apparently something's wrong with his wife. And he said, my wife, she's out walking. And I said, sir, I'll be right back. Stay here. I told the adjutant, don't let him leave. We don't know what this is all about. And I tore off into the housing of the fort. And she had a little poodle, a little dog, and she was walking it. And I guess it got off the leash. And one of the enlisted members' kids shot it with a BB gun and killed it.
Oh, no.
So I show up and I'm like, you know, the MPs are there and they're like, hey, man, we got a real problem. And I'm like, what's going on? They go, they shot the general's dog. And I'm like, oh, man, you guys had me believing she was dead or something like that. And he goes, I said, but she's right there. What's up? And he goes, well, it wasn't so much that the kid shot her dog. It's one of my MPs picked the dog up and threw it in the dumpster.
Oh, no.
The general's wife was trying to kill this Spec 4, man. The MP, she was smacking on him and slapping him. And I'm like, oh, my God. So, it's not those situations. Look, I got blown up in Afghanistan, or I was right outside by where our wall was, and an ID went off, took out my hearing, and it damaged my eye and everything. And, we laugh, that nervous laugh about that stuff. But it's a stupid story of the general trying to beat up one of the junior MPs because he just heartlessly picked up her dead poodle and threw it in the trash.
I was going to say, how many careers ended that day?
Oh, yeah, man. I imagine that went all the way up the chain to the provost marshal there.
Oh, so. I bet. And it's funny. I had somebody, speaking of the crazy stories, I had one of my most recent guests who is Army veteran told me about hearing I forget what base she was on, but hearing some strange noises in the dumpster when they were walking back from PT or whatever, and caught two people having sex in the garbage dumpster. So maybe they're next to the poodle. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, I was working with a group, and we were at JRTC, and you're all inside like a fake fob, and it's got a big berm, and then on the other side of the berm are the buildings where the trainers and the observers meet up and all that other stuff. And we got a report of some noises from one of our roving guards, and the sergeant major, he went over there, and when he tried to open up the door, because there's some scruffing going on, he tried to open up the door and the door closed. He pulled it back open and it pulled back closed. There are two younger enlisted folks in there swapping body fluids, I guess. So I guess it happens,
Yeah. But dumpster diving, though, I don't know about that. So you mentioned, some of the, with that documentary, we know there's some issues with our VA system. Some things have improved over time, but some things still need a lot of work. And working as a VSO, I'm sure you've experienced some things. What's one of your worst experiences that you've had at the VA?
Well, personally, my story started. I like I said, I was outside in Camp Phoenix, and there was a minivan that exploded, and I was standing by what we refer to as our gym, and the blast got me on the left side, and really damaged my hearing. So before you deploy, you take a hearing test as part of your medical screening for a baseline. Obviously, we didn't really have like a hospital on our little camp there. So I waited till I got back, and knowing that my ear was damaged. So when I got back, they tested my hearing. They said, "Hey, you lost a hearing in your left ear." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit." They said, "Tell your unit when you get back." So I told my unit when I got back. They sent me for a hearing test. "Hey, you lost a hearing in your left ear." I'm like, no way, no shit. All right. So then I had 3 more hearing tests with the VA. So now I have a total of 6 hearing tests. They issue me a hearing aid. They match it to my hair color. And every month I'm receiving a box of batteries. And the audiologist, she asked me, she said, "Have you filed a claim yet?" And I said, "No." And she said, "You should." And I said, "Okay." So I filed a claim. It was denied. 6 hearing tests. 5 of them showed almost complete loss in my left ear. They issue me the hearing aid, and they send me batteries on a monthly basis, but yet they still denied my claim.
Was there any, documentation while in country?
Yeah.
Tons of it? Yeah.
Tons of it. I even had a video, because we had closed circuit TV. I even had a video of the IED when it went off.
Wow.
So that's when I really said, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to help other veterans, especially as I retired in 2014. So I said, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And so I started studying up, and then obviously just pursuing my own claim. But I can tell you this across the board, there's 2 things that I feel are very important that I should tell people. And one is a lot of guys that I run across say they don't want any of that entitlement. They're not looking for that. And I understand that. But what you have to understand is that the federal government subsidizes the VA. So when we complain about the VA not having this and not having that, well, one of the reasons is that they don't have the money to do that. And for all the guys that are saying, I'm not going to sign up and do my enrollment or eligibility, that means the VA doesn't know how many people are out there. Now, they have a general idea of how many veterans are out there, but they don't have a general idea of how many veterans are going to be in need of their services. And so that's very important. So I tell every veteran, sign up, do your enrollment, and do your eligibility. If you don't ever want to pursue it past that, fine, but at least help guys like me.
Yeah.
Because that's going to better my treatment. If you don't think you need any treatment, help me out, sign up. The next thing is that VAMC, the medical care, people that wear the lab coats and the scrubs, they might be part of the VA, and compensation and pension, they might be part of the VA too. They might have the same letterhead, but they don't talk to each other. Yeah. The claim process is what bridges that gap. And I'll give you an example there too. I have a gentleman who's 82 years old. He actually loaded the Agent Orange onto the aircraft. That was his job in Vietnam. He retired. He was in from 61 to 81, 20 years. Then he served the State Department for another 20 years. And since then, his body has been absolutely riddled in different lesions, cancers, topographical issues. His body is riddled with all different types of tumors and things of that nature, to the point now where he's 82 years old and he's bedridden and has lost the use of his legs. His wife, who is also a veteran, who's 80 years old, had contacted me, and her only request was, is there any way that somebody from the Legion could come help load him into the Ford Explorer that they have so he could go for his doctor's appointments? I don't know that there's any more selfless act on the planet than serving our country. But to serve our country and then to come back and suffer in pain your entire life is unacceptable. Yeah. And so I've done everything in my power to help them. He's now at 100%. He receives more money now than he does from his retirements. Because you got to remember, 1961 to 1981, us soldiers, we weren't getting paid a whole lot of money. No. And so the retirement on that it barely pays my food bill for the month. Retirement from the State Department was a little bit better because he had a GS rating. Well, now he gets 100%. He gets 8 in attendance, which not only means his wife receives some money for taking care of him, but they also have a nurse that comes by and does things on a daily basis. We established a ramp in his home and got him a motorized wheelchair, but unfortunately he's lost that, those functionalities as well. But at least his house has been adapted now for a wheelchair so that his wife can get him around a little easier. And then on top of that, I've already had the discussion with her so that all of this being service connected is when the time comes. And looks like I froze up here.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
I'll keep talking. I have no idea why I froze up. So he'll, the day that he does pass, I'll be able to get with her and get her paperwork submitted so that she'll be able to continue to receive her portion of the survivor benefits. Not to mention the American Legion will provide an honor guard. The Patriot Riders will escort him to his final place of resting. And on top of that, the folded flag and any of the burial expenses and all that other stuff will be taken care of, easing her mind about what she'll do for the remainder of her life. So, and I do apologize. I have no idea what's wrong with my camera.
Yeah, I'm going to try something really quick. See if I can add you back and see if that makes a difference. Mike, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Now there's nothing.
Here, I'll try my camera.
Yeah.
But other than that, so as you can see, I'm relatively passionate about all the stuff that goes on as far as with veterans.
I mean, what you guys do, I was lucky enough to have my chief in my unit before I got deployed. It was as a VSO. He's retired now, but I mean, he gave me a heads up. He's like, if you stub your toe over there, get it documented and bring it back to me. You know?
Absolutely.
And he told me the same rundown that you said too. Like, every year, Congress allots so much money towards the VA, and all the guys that don't want to go in because give it to somebody that deserves it more or whatever their reasoning, they're actually hurting people, the guys that need it by not signing up. So
absolutely,
I definitely encourage that as well.
I don't understand it. Wow, that's the OBS logo that we were just talking about.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hopefully get your camera functioning, but we'll just keep going on.
Okay, it seems to be working on my end. I can bring up the camera, so maybe.
Yeah, it looks like. Let me see. Because I really don't have any control over camera. Your camera over here. There seems to be like. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, here I'm going to try to stop it and start.
All right. And then, what the heck did I do here? There I am. All right.
No, doesn't look like it.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see. You jinxed us by telling everybody how good looking you are.
That's it.
Can't see you. My ratings were going to go up, and now they're
yeah, it's a curse.
But getting back to our our conversation here, what is one of your greatest hopes for the country that you've been willing to give your life for?
One of the greatest hopes. Well, I'm kind of a realist. I like to think of myself as a realist that looks at. I like to think I'm smart enough to look at both ends of the problem. So I do study politics. I am what I would refer to as obviously right of center. I am a conservative. I like to think of myself as a constitutionalist. I love reading the document, and I believe in the document as much as I am with my spiritual life, as far as believing in the words of the Bible. So what I'd like to see is that overwhelming miracle of us stop. We have to put down our petty disagreements.
Amen.
It's like I watch every day. I watch 2 to 3 hours of the news, but I watch it from all over the world. So I get both sides of the aisle. All right. I have my own personal beliefs, which I've stated are right of center. And, but I try to understand what the left side is saying. So what concerns me the most that I'd like to see is the United States not fall so far into corruption, to fall so far into bureaucracy that we become what other countries I've visited have become. Corruption originates in bureaucracy because I don't know if I don't know if you're married or you've ever dated girls or anything like that, but I've dated some girls that just never seemed like they could tell the truth.
Yeah.
And from there, things always got worse, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was one of those guys back in the day that couldn't tell the truth, and that's why I'm a single dad.
Yeah, so
learning on my journey.
It's one of those things that there obviously the election process was tainted. I don't, you can't cite or quote any specific thing because no matter what instance I say, someone can always come back and go, oh, well, you got that from Fox News or you got that from One American News. It's not true. So I agree. We could fight this back and forth all day long for months and months and months. But what the end result is that our election process has become tainted, which means really, really good people that are important and their vote that's very important are not going to vote anymore because they're going to think that it doesn't count. Once we all become islands, then we honestly become like people live in the Middle East and in Southwest Asia. Everything that you own, you build a wall around it and you protect it. If anybody violates that wall, then you violently protect it. You attack them. And that's no way to live. And you can see it now. Believe it or not, you can see it with gated communities. I live outside of Atlanta, and gated communities are starting to become more and more prevalent. And it's kind of like every time you build a wall now, it's like you're almost telling people we have something of value inside. And that just creates more problems. People start breaking the gate. People start hopping the wall. So I think where the United States is different is that just like after 9/11, there was a flag on every house. There was a new renewal of patriotism. I think the only way we're going to get back to that is more than likely with Republican administrations that ease the government control. It's probably way more political than you wanted to get, but I always pick on the education. And I don't understand. I don't understand why there's so many levels of educational administration. It's certainly not to decide on the curriculum that we're teaching our children, because we've obviously seen in the last year that's a joke. So after you have an assistant teacher, a teacher's assistant, a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and let's say a superintendent, and then maybe somebody at state level, shouldn't there just be like maybe one more person at federal just to represent education in the cabinet? There are these huge unions that people make millions of dollars, but they don't provide anything for our children.
Nope.
It's kind of like the same thing in retail. Any retail operation that has 8, 9 levels of management between the assistant manager and the CEO is doomed to fail, because you're paying so many people to make decisions, but they're not revenue generating decisions. They're just paperwork, their administration, their reports. And unfortunately, that's what our government has become. It's in a quagmire of its own bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And now, now it's all, whether you're, if you're a liberal or a conservative. When I was growing up, I don't even know what my mom and dad voted. I don't have a clue.
Nobody's, it was really nobody's business but theirs. I know I was raised, vote for the person that has the best interest, of our country and, kind of resonates with your personal values.
Absolutely.
And that's, I've carried that with me. And I know that, us serving was so people would, be able to do the same, here in the States. And then I've been, after I got out, I worked for a couple fields where I was in the unions, and not knocking unions, but I just saw a lot of, this is how we're going to vote. This is the slate they'd hand it out to you. And all my brother, oh, okay. Like, no, man, I'm doing my own research and I'm going to vote for who I feel is best.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why people give their lives, so we can have that opportunity,
Absolutely. That's why I never make a good politician, because I'm not going to get elected by the people to vote the way the party is telling me to vote. That doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
I would honestly vote according to the majority of the people, because that's what a democracy is built on. So,
yeah. And then, you talked about a little bit about that documentary and everything, but one of the questions I normally ask is, what you feel we can do to break the stigma of mental health and PTS in the armed forces.
Well, I think when I was a young soldier, there used to be a an advertisement, a commercial on TV that said 8 out of 10 employers are looking for what we teach in the military. I never got a job when I brought that up because they'd look at me and go, well, "What did they teach you in the military?" "Well, I can kill a man from 1,200 yards." So you see what I'm saying is, I know how to choke a guy out. I know how to, so that never worked. Unfortunately, now what's going on is it's like PTSD is like an immediate disqualifier. If you were to divulge, let's say, you were to divulge to you're a police officer, and you were to divulge to your chain of command in law enforcement that you were being treated for post traumatic stress disorder, they would probably find a way to get you off the force. The thing about post traumatic stress disorder is it's exactly what the title is, post traumatic. It's a stress disorder. So it can be numerous things. I'll give you an example, a personal example. My post traumatic stress disorder isn't based on the blood and guts and broken bodies that I saw. My PTSD is rooted in severe depression. And one of the reasons is that a lot of the jobs that I had in the military, I was required to take people into harm's way. And though it's high speed, low drag when you're doing it, when you get to be a little bit older and you live by yourself and the only real companions you have are two pit bulls, you have a lot of time to think about that. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of times that I took unnecessary risk, and I took unnecessary risk with other people's lives. Yeah. And it was all for the completion of the mission. We used to have something that was called the mission accomplishment concept. And basically that was, I don't give a shit, we're going to get it done. And so if anybody said, "Ooh, I'm sick," okay, stay here. If anybody said we can't do this, we'd say stay here. If anybody said you can't do it that way, I'd say the hell I can't. So if you take all that into consideration, and try to make sure that the civilian populace understands that post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't mean that the first time fireworks go off. Hell, I love fireworks,
Yeah.
The first
and I know they're coming.
Yeah. The first time fireworks go off, I'm not going to jump underneath the car and start shooting people in the ankles with my pistol. I still carry a pistol. I have a concealed weapons permit. I meet all the criteria. I'm not doing it illegally. So it's kind of like one of those things. There was a study that was done on homeless veterans years ago that from the American Medical Association that said that people that were homeless were suffering from diseases. And they've since had to recant that. I think the same thing goes along with post-traumatic stress disorder, though it may be in some cases debilitating. The veteran may need constant care, may need heavy medication, may need continuous therapy. But that's probably a very small percentage. The rest of us, it can be controlled. I avoid triggers. I'm very lightly medicated. It took a couple of different prescriptions to find that match. And then once we did find the match, we had to find the dosage. I've been through basically 2 shrinks in the years that I've been going to therapy. One was a 30 plus year veteran at the VA, and she was fantastic. Unfortunately, she retired. And now the one that I have basically just checks the blocks every month. "How are you, Mr. Madsen?" "I'm fine. How are you?" That's the majority of the conversation. She doesn't even look up from her computer. But in the same boat, I have a therapist that I talk to every 2 weeks, and he's fantastic. He's not even a veteran, but he doesn't try to play that. He doesn't try to play that, "Oh, I understand what you're going through," because as we discussed earlier, that'll just piss me off. He never tries that. He actually gives me things to work on based on the things that we discuss. So, though I've never seen the man in person, it's all been video. which I think is an attestament to his skills. He's 25 years my junior as well. So he's a young man. But you know what? The stuff he says makes sense. And the things that he gives me to work on, he doesn't browbeat me if I don't do them. That's one of the problems with depression for a veteran is the failure to launch,
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I do work on and I do see progress in, I'm thankful for it. I'm just not the guy that can do group therapy. If I do group therapy, I have a tendency to be the center of attention and try to take over and, start trying to help the counselor and crap like that, which doesn't help me. So the one-on-one therapy every 2 weeks with a therapist and the right medication, right dosage seems to be working pretty good right now.
Yeah, you said a lot that I connected with there too. For the group therapy part, I it's the opposite for me. I compare myself out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
I always think, well, mine's not as bad as this guy, so I'm just being a pussy or something like that.
Right.
And some of the stuff that that gets me is not really. I mean, I get some occasional depression, but it's more like hypervigilance and anxiety. Like really bad anxiety, just, feel like the bottom's about to fall out all of a sudden. And I'm with family at a, family function or something,
Absolutely.
And it's, and, then when the people, it's hard to kind of explain that to people don't get it. You put on the fake smile in the face, but it feels like you, just finished running a marathon the way your heart's racing in your chest,
Sure.
And, but, part of what I've done for my therapy, and I unfortunately didn't have it as good where I, kept the same therapist for so long because I was firing therapists from the VA left and right until I found the right one. I found the right one right before the pandemic, and then they overworked her and ran her out.
Yeah.
And then now I kind of, I go outside and I've done this alternative health journey. That's why the Valkyrie, thing that you mentioned, I definitely want to get back to, but really quick, part of my therapy in helping myself with my anxiety and being a part of just average normal living again is doing this podcast, talking to people, getting
Absolutely.
people on and learning to have conversations again. I just celebrated 13 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
I self-medicated for a number of years, and but I'm still looking for that right, I guess pharmaceutical. So it sounds like you found the right thing, but what I found that has definitely helped on my journey is the alternative path and trying things outside the box. I've done float tanks, isolation chambers. I've done, cryo, hyperbarics, all kind of hypnotherapy was really huge for me because there was something at 19 years old, a death I witnessed on the aircraft carrier that I compartmentalized and buried for so long that we had to go in there and bring it back up so you got to dig in the roots to treat, a lot of this stuff sometimes.
Absolutely.
To really get healing. But, I wanted to ask like more about that Valkyrie program that you mentioned. Like, what exactly is it, and what options are there that you find for veterans that are like alternative?
Right. The Velcro Initiative was founded by a woman who's just now finishing up her doctorate, Sheila Stevens, and she was, believe it or not, her tale is one that's really shows a tremendous amount of courage. She had worked for a government organization, and you may want to have her on the show and she can go into more detail. But she was basically, for a nutshell or just paraphrase, she was working in, let's say, Bogota, and she was undercover, and they figured out who she was, and they poisoned her. She ended up losing basically the use of her legs. So she worked back through physical therapy and treatment, but some of the chemicals are still in her body, believe it or not, so many years later. And she resides in Birmingham or Pelham, Alabama, and she started the Valkyrie Initiative to help first responders. and veterans with alternative type treatments, because she understood that, one, law enforcement and whatnot have trouble going to regular facilities because, they find out they're cops and all that other stuff, and then they want to report to their chain of command and stuff like that. Veterans, she understood that the Veterans Administration just wasn't meeting the need.
Yeah.
She initially, we started Velcro Radio for her, and she had done a couple music festivals and stuff like that, just trying to bring awareness to these alternative treatments. But over the last year that I've been with her as the vice president, we've narrowed it down to 3 basic alternative treatments. And one is called Velcro Performance O2. And basically what it is that, and these treatments are all free to veterans and first responders. And basically what it does is it's like what Olympic athletes go through. You wear like a small face mask type thing. And what it does is it captures oxygen, and it like rejuvenates the oxygen molecules that are in your body that are attached to your blood. And it gives you just like 15-minute sessions are just like absolutely renewing. You come out of it feeling just incredible. The next thing that we use is what's called the ML830. It's a cold smart laser. And basically, small panels are put onto wherever you need the treatment or wherever you're going through some form of rehabilitation. So like, I'll give you an example. I have really bad bone spurs and plantar fasciitis. So what we do, I also broke my ankle and my leg on the left side at the same time. So what we do is we wrap the panels around my feet and around my ankles, and there's no stimulus. You feel absolutely nothing, but the laser pounds that area and it speeds up recovery.
Wow.
So that we have people that have literally had where they couldn't unclench a fist, like arthritis or things of that nature, had caused their hand to kind of gnarl up. A couple of treatments, and when I mean a couple, I'm talking about two treatments, they're almost regaining 100% range of motion and strength back in their hands. So it's a fantastic, very portable, and like I said, all you got to do is schedule an appointment and go over. The next one is called the Beamer, and that's BEMER, and it's basically, the best way to explain this is it's like a small warm blanket, but what it does is it's transmitting a pulsated electromagnetic field. It does basically the same thing as a cold laser, but that's more direct into an area. This you can like lay on your legs. Now, this is something that NASA is actually involved in, because obviously your muscles and bones go through a certain form of atrophy when you're in space because of the lack of gravity. So this is something that now is being used by Olympic as well as NFL and other major league competitors. And you basically just lay on it or lay it on you. And here again, the sessions are only 15 and 20 minutes. There's no stimulus. It doesn't hurt. You don't know really that it's going on. But when you get done and you can stand up and that aching knee doesn't ache anymore, your quality of life increases tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
So the last one, and I don't really refer to that as is one of our 3 bona fide treatments, but we are a Live Lab distributor. Now, Live Lab, if you're not familiar, and it's gaining popularity, but it's got all of the products like, and I have to apologize because I'm not 100% like up to speed on all of this stuff, because I've tried CBD oils, but I don't know if it's because I'm a big fat guy now and it doesn't work its way down to my ankles or whatever.
Yeah.
But Live Labs has a tremendous line of products that are in that category, like THCs, full spectrums, and things like that. Even to, skin like conditioning and stuff like that. And I got to tell you, I'd gotten a bottle and it was full spectrum. So I, from what I understand, people that, research this stuff understand that full spectrum, 2,500 milligrams, whatever, is like a pretty heavy duty dose. And I took a couple drops. Now, look, I'm not going to lie to you, and I don't think anybody cares, but I used to smoke a lot of pot when I was a teenager. And so I took a whole syringe full, and it gave me that same euphoric feeling. All right. So being the guy that I am, I wasn't comfortable. Okay.
Yeah.
So my youngest son, who's 19, who he, believe it or not, he works on the controllers for the gaming platforms. And then his older brother is an alpha tester doing the same thing. So my two sons actually grew up their whole lives going, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to play video games for a living." Me going, "Yeah, sure you are." Now the little bastards do. They literally play video games and test controllers as mechanical and design engineers, which is amazing. But my youngest one has a condition that's called sticky blood. His blood doesn't course through his body like it does for the rest of us. So he has all sorts of other problems that stem from that, basically like an early onset lupus type situation. I gave him the drops and I asked him if he wanted to try them. He swears by them. The only time he uses them is when it's time for bed, because
Yeah.
where you and I would relax and get in a quiet room and maybe have some music playing or, relax to go to bed, his body doesn't do that because of the sticky blood. It's running at a constant slower rate almost all the time. So he doesn't, if he gets excited, it's like trying to pump molasses through his veins. If he gets depressed or something that would slow his heartbeat, it can be deadly. So by taking a couple drops of this, buddy, he swears by Live Labs. He hasn't, for years and years and years, he could never get time more than about 2-3 hours of sleep together. And now through this product, he can get 8 hours of good medicinal sleep, wake up clear-headed and ready for work the next day.
Yeah, it sounds similar to one of the sponsors I have for this show, Dream Nutrition. They're veterans. It's a veteran-owned and operated CBD oil company that I connected with a couple of years ago. And yeah, I know for me, it takes that with that hyper vigilance and everything. When I first came home, man, sleep was not really much of an option. I would get up, check the windows, check the doors. I don't know how many times. My girls were really little at the time, so checking on them. And finally we ended up getting a dog, and he kind of helped. Like, all right, I got the watch. You can get a little bit of, sleep, but it was more getting something to help me relax, shut my brain down for a couple hours. And, I'll play some like, meditative type music or
Right.
something in the background. And that's still my routine today,
Right.
because, dealing with chronic pain and everything, it's tough,
It really is. I had to stop. I was up to 3,600 milligrams a day of gabapentin. I was taking Naxaprin, Zoloft, and Seroquel. My gut was a nightmare. My gut was just a wreck. I complained about that to the VA, so they gave me Prilosec. Well,
we got another pill for you.
Yeah, we got another pill for you. So once you take the Prilosec, it actually reduces the effectiveness of the painkillers. So I could either suffer with a stomach and not have pain, or I could not suffer. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just stopped taking all of it. Not to mention the attorney I had looked it up, and basically 3,600 milligrams of gabapentin a day was enough to bring down a horse. Apparently, like anything over 2,700 milligrams is like extremely dangerous. But it shut me up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely one of the other things problems that I had with the VA after coming home, is like everybody was prescribing you something and nobody was like checking what they weren't cross communicating to see, okay, well, what's the side effects of this? And I ended up having like an episode with and I had a little bit of TBI from my deployment, but I had an episode where it dropped my blood pressure so much, this one medication they had me on, and I got up and I walked to the bathroom and I'm taking a leak. And then all of a sudden next thing I know, I'm on a gurney going to the hospital because I split my head open and get 17 staples in, and it was ridiculous. So it's like, yeah, I've been over the course of time getting off the medication. It's like I'm going to be either in pain trying to get better, or I'm going to get in pain, getting worse. Pain's just going to be a part of it. I got fibromyalgia. I got diagnosed with that as well from over there. So the winters here in Cleveland, the one we just had, where it was hell, but thankfully things are starting to warm up, and I've been getting more active and watching what I eat and getting, I'm more geared towards some natural remedies and alternatives than I am big pharmaceutical.
Yeah, we're actually right now I'm in the process of writing grants, one for the homeless program because it's extremely expensive to operate, but I'm also doing them for the Velcro Initiative so that we can open up another operation here outside of Atlanta. So our goal, obviously, in a perfect world and a great thing, would be to have an office just about outside of every major city, so that it can, and it would be free of charge. That's probably the biggest thing. And it really doesn't, I mean, in the scheme of things, you can run one of these operations for less than $200,000 a year, but you can serve 600 plus veterans, or at least have 600 appointments a year, whether it's the same veteran or multiple veterans. And for that little bit of money, when you look at some of the nonprofits that have received money as emergency food and shelters, or alternative medicines, or different types of treatments, or it's absolutely staggering how many of them are veteran based, but in reality, less than 10% of them are active. The VA gave, literally $500 million away in 2019 to 288 nonprofits. But yet the homeless situation is still at crisis level. Yeah. The United Way gives away $1 million grants as emergency food and shelters to different locations. There's one, I'm not going to specifically say the name, but basically they have an amazing website. They if you're homeless, you can contact them, and they'll take your name and number and email address, and they'll sign you up for some other programs. But they're you see what I'm saying, is nobody's actually addressing the individual medical problems of the veterans. And I have a solution. I really do. Or the homeless situation. The homeless situation is easy. Believe it or not, it's a mentoring system that before you ETS, expired time and service, that you have to sign up for, and you've got to go to, and that's where the VA does their initial evaluation on you. Then when you leave the service, you're already in the system, because one of the biggest deterrents to getting in the VA system is the enrollment process, going through all the nonsense websites and all. The next thing is that to ensure that you have a list of resources, and I'm not talking about like Military Source One or something like that. I'm talking about a legitimate list of resources in your area. So you don't have to wait until you are homeless before you start looking for something. You don't have to wait till you're in the hospital having a breakdown before you realize you could have contacted. And they do have a 1-800 number, press 1. There's things that are in place, but the stigma that goes along with them is what is stopping a lot of people from doing it. Repairing the VA system, believe it or not, to me is simple, because there's numerous, absolutely multiple military medical units in all branches. One of the training aspects for anybody that's in the medical field, they lack realistic training. And the reason being is it's as expensive as going to the range. When you tear open a gauze bandage in training, that gauze bandage can no longer be used. That gauze bandage is one of the most expensive training aids that isn't reusable. So how do we do that? We take all of the National Guard units that are medical trained, and we start making their weekend drill and their 2-week annual training where they work at the Veterans Administration Hospital.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, the VA can't say no because we don't have the money. Because guess what? The guardsmen, the Air Force Reserves, the state defense forces, they're already getting paid.
Yep.
So the VA can't say it's going to cost money. And let me tell you something. If I was ever admitted to a VA hospital and I saw somebody walk in that was in uniform, buddy, they'd have my respect.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I think that would do amazing. Now, the majority of the medical units that I've talked to, they would love this. They would absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
They could even have a state-ran command that handles where these people go to. And when you have combat medics, I spoke to one today that I'm going to be working on his claim, his VA claim. He's been deployed like 4 times. You're not going to take him and put him in a parking lot and say, okay, we're going to train on Mascal. He's just going to look at you and say, buddy, I've seen Mascal and this ain't it, So what do? You put that guy in the emergency triage. You put that guy in the freaking emergency room where he gets to see the blood and guts, where he's trained, where he's going to be able to keep his composure and use his expertise. I think it would be a great idea. And guess what? I don't know about the Navy, but the Army has medical personnel that handle nothing but, get this, administrative duties. They have people that's all they do all day long. Well, holy crap. You could take a whole group of those folks and put them in an office down at VA Atlanta and let them type away all weekend. They'd love it.
Yeah. It process some claims too.
Yeah. What the hell's going on? Stop it.
How quick that would get done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've talked to the commissioner of the Veteran Affairs here in Georgia, and I'm trying to get an appointment with the commissioner of Veterans Affairs in Alabama, and to try to see if we can't pioneer some of these programs. I think 2 things would happen. Tell you the truth, I think the patients would be ecstatic, and I think the level of care would go up. The secret thing that would happen is the VA employees that are, let's say, subpar, they would pick up the pace.
Oh, yeah.
They would see that these people can replace them.
Yep. I mean, I noticed that the past couple of years, I guess maybe even during the past administration, it seemed like the law was being laid down like, look, you're not going to be protected just because of your, union status. Pick up the pace and take care of our guys,
Well, three big things have happened with the VA in the last couple of years. 1, now they can get fired. 2, you can sue them for malpractice. And 3, they used to get budgeted bonuses. A couple of years ago, they gave away over $100 million in bonuses, and it was based on productivity. So what do you think takes longer? Disapprove a claim, disapprove a claim, disapprove a claim. That all you got to do is stamp it and move it along, or approve a claim and have to hand walk it to all the departments. So they were just stamping them, disapprove, 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 disapproved. And then, hey, look how much work I did at the end of the day. So all, that kind of stuff has been addressed and has been shot down,
Yeah, there's so much that I think we're going to be keeping in touch and talking offline here, because I've got a couple projects up here in the Cleveland area that sound very similar, and we're definitely going to have to, I'm going to be bouncing some ideas off you and stuff. But I wanted to ask you too about, you mentioned the Foxhole Internet Radio station. You've got these other shows and forms of broadcasting that you're doing right now.
Right.
What was some of the motivation for you behind these? And did you always have kind of a love for broadcasting, or?
Well, I'll be honest with you. A long time ago, someone had said, you've got a really good face for radio.
That's why your camera went out.
That's right. Yeah. And then when I was obviously a helicopter pilot, we had internal frequencies, and we used to joke around and do little stupid stuff on there. I did I used to do impersonations for Armed Forces Radio. So when I got out, I was actually a corporate secretary for a nonprofit. I'm not going to mention the name because it was all dissolved. But I did an interview on an internet radio morning show. And the guys at the show, it was called Just for Fun Radio. It's called The Morning Show. And the guys were like, wow, you're really good at this. You know, if you ever want to come in and be a regular guest. So I started coming in, and then before long, I was a regular guest on the show. And then I started doing night shows of my own. I had The World According to Military Mike, and I had a show called Guns and Gadgets. And so I kept doing that, and then things just kind of progressed. The owner of Just for Fun Radio, DJ Scotty, is still, he's like my brother. He's a great friend. In fact, he only lives, I'd probably say 5 miles away from me. I kept pestering him, going, hey man, let's expand this radio station. Let's expand this radio station. And he goes, look, man, I like being local. You know, he goes out and he DJs for our American Legion. He DJs at car shows and things locally within our area. And his advertisers are all local. And he goes and visits them and does live broadcasts from those locations, which is really cool, even though it's a global internet radio station. Well, I started the Foxhole Internet Radio Network to be the voice of the Foxhole Support Network, which was a nonprofit I was working with at the time, which I'm not sure, they've kind of dissolved as well due to some personal issues that came up that they had to take care of. But so I took the Foxhole Internet Radio Network. We're currently 6 radio stations. And what I do now with it is I attach a radio station to a nonprofit or to an organization that's veteran based, like Velcro Initiative has the Velcro Radio. The one that we're currently working on is a huge RS Vet Radio Syndicate. And we've set up their radio station. We're setting up their membership platform so that people can make monthly contributions that will help take care of approximately 15 with my new show coming out, not necessarily not the news. We should be like 16 weekly shows. We take those shows and we rip the audio from them and put them on the radio station at different times so other people can listen. And then we turn those into audio podcast as well. So, you know, there's a lot of work involved, but the Vet Radio Syndicate has an enormous reach. Well into every 28 days, we're well over 30 million in reach.
Wow.
And it's growing. So George Pardos is the man who runs that. And he does a great job keeping control of all the knuckleheads, veterans doing their podcast and veteran shows and everything. So that's really a good one. The next one that we have coming up is Ranger Radio that will be associated with On Point 11, which is a Rangers Association from the U.S. Army Airborne Rangers. And they'll have Ranger Radio, and they'll have the same thing, a membership base. We've got Operation Rally Point Radio. Operation Rally Point is a nonprofit in the Atlanta area that deals with homeless veterans. We've got the American Patriot Village Radio, which belongs to the American Patriot Village, which is 72 acres up in the North Georgia mountains that has been allocated to build it's a veteran-based subcommunity where the 1 acre lots, beautiful homes, and they help you get into it with an extended mortgage, like 38 years, so that your mortgage payment isn't that much. There's a central meeting location, and they're going to be doing podcasts and answering questions about VA and medical alternative treatments and whatnot. That the community will also offer like non-emergency medical transportation to the VA hospital and stuff. So, you know, we got a couple other ones that we're working on, a couple big ones. You know, it's moving at a very, very, very fast pace. I work 7 days a week. This month, what I've already seen and who's currently on the calendar, I'll have seen over 40 clients as a VSO. We have 20 plus veteran families in our homeless program. It's extremely expensive to operate. Basically, we're between $27,000 and $30,000 a month right now, handling the 20 plus families. We're turning people away currently because we have no more financial resources. Operation Rally Point is turning people away. They're in their 40s, taking care of 40 plus families. It's a everyday grind, but I can't think of a more honorable position in life. I in the whole time I've been doing this, I have received not one penny. So it's obviously, if anybody ever said, "Oh, you're trying to become rich," I could always go, "Well, I live in a little bitty house. I have 2 pit bulls, and I drive a 22-year-old Jeep. So I dress like a hobo, and the most expensive thing I have probably is my Hello Fresh delivery once a week for dinner, so I don't have to go out and eat all the time." So it's one of those things. It goes back to there's
Passion.
there's an adherence to a code of honor amongst veterans. There's a camaraderie and an immediate acceptance. I don't care if you're a man, a woman. I don't care if you're black, white, Republican, liberal, Muslim, Catholic, Christian. It doesn't matter. If you wore that uniform and you served our country, you're immediately my brother or my sister, and you have my back. I have your back. And though there are exceptions to the policy, more than often, you will find that immediate given respect back. There's some people that have specific issues that maybe the timing's not right, but for the most part, every veteran I deal with is extremely thankful that they've got somebody like me in their corner, and that's what helps me go to sleep every night.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The more I've been sober, the more I've been walking, with based towards faith and working on my relationship with God. I see people that are brought into my life, and everybody's kind of like purpose and why they were put here. And one of mine, it seems to be, I'm always great at people coming into my life and networking them with other people that have come into my life previously, where this person can fulfill a need that this person has, and just connecting people, you being a bridge. And I'm grateful for that. And I definitely have quite a few people in mind that I want to get you connected with. One of the things you said too about all the podcasts and the shows and how many people you reach. As I said, this is therapy for me, but at the same time, some of my goals is, when I was deployed and I had some downtime, I wasn't always just like throwing on music or whatever on my headphones. I was listening to some podcasts. Some friends of mine were doing a podcast back home. It was around the advent of podcasting, and it would provide like an escape for me. It provide a temporary reprieve and escape from where to forget about where I was at and what was going on. Of course I wasn't doing it during missions, but at night, when and I want this podcast that I'm doing now to kind of help those same guys that are now deployed over there. I love to get an audience like that. I even, had a buddy that was going to originally start this with me, and hopefully I'll be able to get him back, because me and him together were like this comedic duo that played well and always would entertain our unit and stuff when we got rolling,
Not necessarily the news. My co-host is Scott Machette. He's known as the Senate comedian. He used to be in the Senate up in Washington, D.C.
Oh, nice.
So extremely knowledgeable guy. Plus he's funny as hell. And we've got another veteran from Brushfire Mind is our producer. And so he does extremely good quality shows and whatnot. Along with that, we do this program called Do a Set for a Vet, which is an online paid performance where we have performing artists donate a set of music, and we put it on this platform. And then, of course, the proceeds from that go to help the Velcro Initiative. So,
Nice.
you know, I often tell people, because they ask me about starting their own business, especially veterans. And I always go, well, you know, whenever you're a member of any of our membership groups, we have a vendors list that you can join. It's free. And we advertise whatever, you know, discount or perk you want to offer to any of the members of that particular nonprofit or organization. And I always tell them too, though, never market to veterans. If you're a veteran-based business and your market plan is to market to veterans, well, you're not. It's just not going to work, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, we're not wealthy people. You know, we do something's wrong with our blood or our brain or something. Because and now look, I do know a couple of guys that have ran some and still running some extremely profitable businesses, and thank God. I mean, I think it's magnificent. I don't think that I could ever be a rich or wealthy man, for the simple reason is I look at other people and I see. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to say his name, but I was working with a veteran today, and he's homeless. We got him in a hotel room. He's there with his wife and 2 kids, but it's not because he made a mistake. Like he's. I mean, I had a drug addiction. I had alcoholism in my life. Those were choices I made. You know, I wanted to drink instead of face my problems. So he didn't make those mistakes. This guy has an injury that has affected his lower back and his hips. So he was in the Navy. He's only done like hard manual labor his whole life, but he can't do it anymore. So someone offered to buy his house, one of these investment groups right now. They said, hey, we'll give you this much for your house. He's like, hell yeah, that's a lot more than I paid for it. So he did that. The problem is now he doesn't have another house to move into. And over the course of 6 months has spent almost every bit of that profit staying in extended stay hotels, because every house his wife and him have picked out, he's lost in the cash battle, the bidding war. And I'll give you another personal example. I bought my house for $160,000 2 years ago. I got an offer a month ago, sight unseen, for $230,000. That is a $70,000 profit in 2 years. When I turned it down, the guy said, why would you turn it down? I said, even with the $70,000, there's no houses for me to move into. Yeah. There's nowhere for me to go.
BlackRock owns them all.
Yeah, you know, there are investment companies in Georgia now that are gobbling up houses. My daughter bought her house for $94,000 10 years ago. She just sold it for $320,000.
Wow.
She took almost every bit of that and put it into a house that was the same size but newer. That was $450,000. So the housing market has created, you know, baby boomers, they're downsizing. They don't need those big houses. So when they sell their houses, they're cash heavy. So when they see a house for $200,000, hell, they can just about pay for it. And ain't nobody selling a house out there is going to say, oh, no, wait, I want to get it to a veteran and go through the VA loan process, as opposed to just getting a check for $200,000.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. And rent, I don't know about Cleveland, but rent here in Georgia, my mortgage to move into a 1-bedroom apartment, it would be twice what my mortgage payment is here.
Wow.
In a 1-bedroom apartment, 700 square feet is about $1,500, $1,600 right now in this area. If you have children and you need a 2 or 3 bedroom, it's over $2,000 a month rent. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
And here's the other problem too with that, just to give you some insight. If you're a single veteran like you and I are, and we're at 100%, basically that's about $3,300. You can't qualify for a home that costs $225,000.
No.
1/3. You see what I'm saying? You don't have the 1/3 rule there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to be able to afford 1/3 of what your income is, and at 100%, you won't qualify. Sounds pretty, yeah. So, and housing prices, they'll come down eventually, but they're not going to come down much.
No, I don't know. I mean, that's a whole nother episode with the way everything's going right now with inflation and everything out there. But Mike, yeah, we've been going at it a little over an hour now.
Yep.
I wanted to get ready and wrap up here. But I wanted to ask you some of the questions I normally ask
Sure.
all my guests that I have on. Usually, I'm a big music guy. I've had a lot of musicians on and stuff. So I always ask, like, who are your top 3 bands?
Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, and Uncle Ted Nugent.
Nice. And then do you feel there is a song that has inspired you in life that's like a go-to on your playlist whenever you
Absolutely. I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me.
Oh yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, didn't they make a movie out of that song too?
They did indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm very active in my church, and I always tell them whenever the music folks are talking about, let's do that song. I'm like, nope, don't do it. Don't do it. I'll be in the back blubbering like a baby.
Yeah. It's funny too, because it was after my deployment, my last deployment when I came home, and kind of like, a lot of factors played a role where I kind of like hit my bottom, so to speak. And, I started recovery, and then I was raised Catholic and stuff. And, there was a whole little thing that I went through where I had my come to Jesus moment, and got deployed or after deployment and stuff. And, I tell you what, man, it's just been an amazing journey where God has led me, my relationship with him today. And I don't know how many of those songs, because I was coming from a heavy metal like background and world. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make it in this Christian world. And then I got like bands like Skillet and Red and everything that help still give me that, but, I would start hearing and I'd have to pull over this side of the road and start blubbering like a baby, man, because it's like God is speaking through me right now through these songs and helping me on this, that telling me things are going to be all right. Things are going to be all right.
We have a Christian station called Not All Is Lost. The acronym is NAIL, and it's one of our most popular stations.
Oh, nice! I like that.
And our 80s station called Grady's, GR80. Grady's, man. People love 80s music.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then who are 3 people who've inspired you or you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Oh, wow. Probably one of the biggest ones was my mother. She, for the short term short period of time that I had her, she certainly instilled a lot of honor and respect and duty and everything else in me. But I think I am the man who I am because of her. The next one is it's kind of a strange situation, but in the military, you have certain people that kind of strike you as a mentor.
Yeah.
And there's one gentleman, and right now he's unfortunately he just had back surgery, but he's a former helicopter pilot as well. He's a Baptist, but I'll overlook that. But he's on the executive committee at the American Legion that I'm the VSO at. His name is Ralph, and he's 80 years old, and I bet you he can still run faster. And I bet you his days are just as busy as mine, if not busier. And whenever we get around each other, it's like we've known each other our whole lives. And, even my stupid jokes, I ask him, what it was like flying a helicopter during the Civil War and, stuff like that. And, I heard he was on the USS Noah's Ark and junk like that, and we just bust up laughing, but he's always got a sagely portion of advice whenever we're in the executive committees or even at the membership meetings, and I have a lot of respect for him. The third, I've got to go to my go-to is going to be Jesus Christ, and one of the reasons that I say that is because I've studied. I too was raised Roman Catholic, but for the majority of my adult life, I've been in what are referred to as Bible colleges or New Testament type churches. So I've actually studied quite a bit about the life of Jesus, and there's so many misunderstandings and there's so many misquotes and stuff like that. And I think there's a show now that most accurately to me represents his life. It's called The Chosen. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see any of the episodes, but
but I think I've seen some of the commercials or trailers.
Yeah, it's there's 2 seasons out. It's self-funded. It's not a high dollar budget, type thing. But the guy that plays Jesus, I think he does an amazing job because he's selfless basically, and he doesn't want to hear anybody's arguments because they're trivial. And on top of that, he's got a sense of humor. And I think that's important because I just don't see Jesus Christ not having a sense of humor with all the stuff that happened in his short lifespan. So, to follow somebody that had went through all that and went through all those struggles. And the main thing I tell people is as far as why I follow him is that it's not that sin wasn't ever presented to him. It's just that he didn't act upon it. And that's the key right there. I think there's a reason why we say, let's do the right thing here. Do the right thing instead of some other word. And that's because you have a decision. That moment of pause before you do something stupid is basically a spiritual moment. Because if you say, no, I'm not going to drink and drive, that's dumb. I'm going to get an Uber. I'm going to get somebody to drive. I think that's a spiritual moment. I think if you agree to do it, then you're letting the other guy into your life. Yeah. And believe me, for the longest time, I was that other guy. I used to tell people, seek the darkest corner of your mind. Those eyes that are peering back at you are mine. I was a horrible person. I was hateful. I was mean. I did a lot of bad things. So having someone like Jesus to follow for me is so easy. I pray to him. I discuss things with him. He's always there. He's always consistent. The things I get, I know are his blessings. The thing I don't get are his blessings. Yeah. And I have honestly developed a relationship with him that when I absolutely positively need something, I can ask for it, and I've always received it. So knowing that, I don't ask for things that I know I don't necessarily need. And that's a beautiful realization to have.
Yeah, that is awesome. Like, wow, man. We're definitely going to be keeping in touch. And then here's a favorite question. It takes people back quite a bit. Favorite toy as a child?
Man, I had a helmet that was a space helmet that went all the way over your head and onto your shoulders. And it was yellow tinted, and it changed your voice to sound like you were on a radio. Nice. I used to run around the house telling my parents I was going to be an astronaut, but it was in that crazy voice that made you sound like a radio.
Awesome. And then any message that you have for our brothers and sisters that are currently serving overseas?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Understand that we're with you, though we're not there presently. We'll support you. All you got to do is ask for stuff and you'll receive it. And the main thing is to rely not only on your buddy, but rely on your God and understand that no harm will come to you, but you can't be on the fence post. You're either in it or don't be in it.
Amen. Mike, wow. thank you so much for taking the time.
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll definitely be talking, keeping in touch offline here. There's so many things I had to write down and make a note because
Okay.
there's definitely, like I said, there's some connections that
Yeah,
I feel
great.
need to be made for sure. And
Absolutely.
you're
Absolutely.
doing amazing stuff down there in Georgia. It sounds like, and across your audience, with
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, absolutely.
stations and everything
I
too, getting the message out. So
man, I do VSO work for people in California, Alaska, New York, everything now. It's pretty amazing how the word spread, you know.
yeah, for
So
sure. Awesome. And then before I let you go, one last favor. Usually when I have a veteran on, I always have my guests do like a promo ID for me, but when I have a veteran on, I usually have them introduce themselves at their last rank.
okay.
Um, so if you wouldn't mind, like, introduce yourself at your last rank, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
All right. Hey, this is Military Mike Madsen, Chief Warrant Officer 2, and today you're listening to the Boondoggle podcast.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much.
No problem, man.
Appreciate you, man, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.